I still remember the smell of that kitchen. Garlic, rosemary, and something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was just tension. I was 23, newly married, and desperate to prove I belonged in this family. My hands were shaking as I plated the roast chicken I'd spent all afternoon preparing. Perfect golden skin. Herb butter melting into the meat. I thought maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. My name is Lena, and this is how the woman who called me useless ended up wearing an apron in my kitchen. The dining room went silent when I brought the food out. My husband Eric smiled nervously. His father nodded politely. But his mother, Mrs. Clark, looked at the plate like I'd served her garbage. She cut into the chicken, took one bite, and her face twisted into something between disgust and disappointment. "It's dry," she said, not even looking at me. "And over-salted." "Eric, darling, you look exhausted. I told you marrying someone without proper training would be difficult." I forced a smile, swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm sorry, I can make something else." "Don't bother." She waved her hand dismissively. "Some women are just born without the gift. It's not your fault you didn't grow up learning these things." Eric said nothing, just kept eating, eyes down. That hurt more than her words. Every Sunday was the same ritual. Dinner at their house or ours, and every time, Mrs. Clark found something wrong. My clothes were too casual. My laugh was too loud. I didn't understand investment portfolios or country club politics, but what she hated most was that I didn't have a real career. I worked part-time at a small bakery, barely making enough to help with bills. Eric had a good job at a marketing firm, but his mother made sure I knew I was dead weight. One evening, after she'd had too much wine, she said it clearly. "My son deserves someone with ambition. Someone who can actually contribute, not a girl who plays with flour all day." I went to the bathroom and cried silently while they laughed about something in the living room. But that night, something shifted inside me. I looked at myself in the mirror, mascara running, and made a promise. One day, she would eat those words. Maybe literally. Then everything fell apart faster than I expected. Eric lost his job. The company downsized, and he came home with a box of his belongings and a face full of shame. I held him while he cried, told him we'd figure it out together. I picked up more shifts at the bakery. Started looking for ways to make extra money. That's when I had the idea. People at the bakery always complimented my personal recipes. The lemon bars I brought for staff, the curry I made for potlucks. What if I could turn that into something? I started small. Really small. I made 10 lunchboxes. Homemade pasta, garlic bread, side salad, and took them to Eric's old office building. Sold them in the lobby for $8 each during lunch hour. They sold out in 20 minutes. I came home excited, ready to tell Eric about my little success. But his mother was there, sitting in our living room like she owned the place. When I explained what I'd done, she laughed. Actually laughed. "So this is your business plan? Selling little lunchboxes like a child with a lemonade stand? Lena, honey, this is embarrassing. You're making my son look desperate." Eric didn't defend me, he just looked tired. "Everyone starts somewhere," I said quietly. "Yes, and some people never leave that somewhere. You're 24 with no degree, no connections, and no sense of reality. Cooking won't pay a mortgage, sweetheart. It's a hobby, not a career." I wanted to scream, to throw her out, to tell Eric to choose between us. But I didn't. I just smiled, nodded, and went to the kitchen. Because I was learning that silence could be a weapon too. The next few months were brutal. I kept making lunchboxes, expanding to 3 office buildings. I saved every dollar, every single one. Eric started looking for jobs, but got rejected constantly. His confidence shattered, and his mother's voice was always there in his head in our arguments. "Maybe mom's right. Maybe you should get a real job. This cooking thing isn't serious." That sentence broke something in me. 2 weeks later, Eric told me he was leaving. Not for another job, for another woman, someone he'd reconnected with online, someone with a master's degree in a corporate position, someone his mother approved of. "I need to be with someone who matches my ambition," he said, using his mother's exact words. I didn't cry in front of him. I waited until he packed his things and left. Then I sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by meal prep containers, and cried until my throat hurt. I was 25, divorced, broke, and apparently useless. But here's what Mrs. Clark didn't know about useless women. We're dangerous because we have nothing left to lose. I threw myself into the lunchbox business like my life depended on it. Because it did. I woke up at 4 in the morning to prep. Delivered to 5 office buildings by 11. Took online business courses at night. I watched YouTube videos about marketing, branding, pricing strategy. I learned about food costs and profit margins and customer retention. My friend Maya, who worked in event planning, suggested I try catering small corporate events. I was terrified, but I said yes. The first event was a nightmare. I underestimated portions, arrived late, and nearly had a breakdown in the client's bathroom, but they loved the food. And they referred me to 2 other companies. Slowly, painfully, things grew. I moved from lunchboxes to catering, from catering to pop-up dinner events. I reinvested every profit, bought better equipment, hired my first helper, then another. My little operation moved from my apartment kitchen to a shared commercial space. People started talking. Food bloggers came to my pop-ups. I got mentioned in a local magazine's hidden gems section. My Instagram following grew from 200 to 15,000 in 6 months. And through it all, I kept one photo on my phone. Mrs. Clark at our last family dinner, laughing at my lunchboxes. I looked at it whenever I wanted to quit. Whenever 4 a.m. felt too early. Whenever I wondered if she was right about me. 3 years passed. Then 4. Then 5. I stopped counting after a while. I was too busy building something real. I found a location, a beautiful corner space in the city's revitalized downtown district, floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, high ceilings. It was way out of my budget, but I'd been saving, investing carefully, building credit. I pitched my vision to investors, a 3-page proposal I'd written and rewritten 100 times. They said yes. We opened on a Tuesday in October. I called it the Golden Spoon. Not flashy, not trendy, just elegant. The kind of place where you felt special the moment you walked in. We served elevated comfort food, the dishes I'd perfected over 5 years of pop-ups and catering events. Every plate told a story. The first week was slow. The second week, a food critic came in anonymously and wrote a review that changed everything. 4 stars. A triumph of heart over technique. Chef Lena has created something rare, a space that feels like home but tastes like luxury. We were fully booked for the next 2 months within 3 days. I hired carefully. Single mothers who needed flexible schedules. Young chefs from culinary schools who couldn't afford unpaid internships. People who reminded me of myself. People who'd been underestimated. My head chef Daniel was a formerly incarcerated man who'd learned to cook in prison and couldn't get hired anywhere else. He was brilliant. The Golden Spoon became more than a restaurant. It became a statement. Within a year, we opened a second location, then a third. I started a catering company under the same brand. We did weddings, corporate events, celebrity parties. My face was in business magazines. I spoke at entrepreneurship conferences, and I never forgot where I came from, or who told me I'd never make it. Then one morning, my HR manager, Sophie, knocked on my office door. She looked uncomfortable. "Lena, we have an applicant for the line cook position. She's qualified, experienced, but I think you should see the resume yourself." She handed me the folder. I opened it, and there it was. Margaret Clark. Professional experience, 20 years as a home economics teacher. Recently retired, looking to return to work. References available upon request. My heart stopped. Then it started racing. I looked at Sophie. Did she recognize the company name? No. We operate under Golden Spoon Hospitality Group for hiring. Your personal name isn't on the job posting. I sat back in my chair. 5 years ago, I would have rejected this application immediately. Sent a cold email, enjoyed the petty satisfaction, but I wasn't that person anymore. I'd built something bigger than revenge. "Schedule her for an interview," I said. "I'll conduct it personally." Sophie's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Completely." The interview was on a Thursday afternoon. I dressed carefully that morning. Not to impress, but to remind myself how far I'd come. Tailored blazer, simple jewelry, hair pulled back, professional, powerful, calm. Mrs. Clark arrived 15 minutes early. I watched her on the security camera, sitting in our waiting area, looking around nervously at the elegant decor. She'd aged, more gray in her hair, lines around her mouth. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I was just bigger now. I had Sophie bring her to my office instead of the usual interview room. I wanted her to see everything. The awards on the wall, the framed magazine covers, the view of the city from my desk. When Sophie opened the door and Mrs. Clark walked in, time seemed to slow down. She was looking at her phone, probably checking the time. Then she looked up, saw me sitting behind my desk. Her face went completely white. "Hello, Mrs. Clark," I said calmly. "Please have a seat." She stood frozen in the doorway. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Lena, you own this restaurant?" "I own 7 restaurants, actually, and a catering company. The Golden Spoon is just the flagship location." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit." She sat down slowly, like her legs might give out. Her hands were shaking. I remembered my hands shaking while plating that chicken so many years ago. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I saw the job posting. I needed work. I didn't realize that the useless girl with the lunch boxes built something real." She flinched. "Lena, I'm so sorry. I was awful to you. I said terrible things. I was wrong about everything." Part of me wanted to savor this moment, to let her sit in her shame, to reject her application and watch her leave humiliated. But that's not who I'd become. I didn't build an empire on bitterness. I built it on proving people wrong, quietly, successfully, and with grace. "Your resume says you taught home economics for 20 years, that you specialized in professional kitchen management and food safety. Is that accurate?" She looked confused by the shift to professional questions. "Yes, I taught high school. I also worked summers at a catering company before Eric was born." "And you're looking for full-time work?" My husband's retirement investments didn't perform as expected. We need the income. I know I'm older, but I'm reliable. I show up on time. I follow instructions." "You're hired." She stared at me. "What?" "You're hired. As a line cook, you'll report to head chef Daniel. Starting salary is $18 an hour, full benefits after 90 days. Uniforms are provided. You start Monday." "Lena, I don't understand. After everything I said to you, after how I treated you, why would you—" "Because I don't hire people based on personal history, Mrs. Clark. I hire them based on whether they can do the job. And you can. But make no mistake, this is my kitchen, my rules, my vision. If you can respect that, you're welcome here. If you can't, the door is behind you." She sat there, tears running down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Chef Daniel runs a tight kitchen. He doesn't tolerate shortcuts or excuses. If you can't keep up, you're out. Understood?" "Yes, understood." "Good. Sophie will process your paperwork. Welcome to the Golden Spoon." She left my office looking dazed. I sat there for a long moment after she was gone, staring at the city skyline. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times over the years. The confrontation, the revenge speech, the satisfying rejection. But the reality was better. Because I didn't need to humiliate her. My success did that for me. The fact that she needed a job and I was the one offering it said everything that needed to be said. Mrs. Clark started the following Monday. I watched her first day on the kitchen cameras. She arrived early, uniform pressed, looking nervous. Daniel put her on prep duty, chopping vegetables, portioning proteins, basic tasks. She worked quietly, efficiently, without complaint. The other kitchen staff didn't know our history. To them, she was just Margaret, the new line cook. And she worked hard, showed up every day on time, followed instructions, kept her head down. I made it a point to walk through the kitchen once a day. Every time I did, I could feel her tension. But I never made it weird. I treated her exactly like every other employee. Professional, fair. Sometimes I'd compliment a well-executed dish. Sometimes I'd point out things that needed improvement. Always respectful. About 2 months in, we had a rush night, a corporate event for 200 people on the same night as our regular dinner service. The kitchen was chaos. Orders flying. Tickets piling up. Everyone was stressed. Mrs. Clark was on salad station. I watched her work. Fast, precise, no wasted movement. She'd done this before. When her station got backed up, she didn't panic. She just moved faster. When a new cook made a mistake that would have delayed 10 orders, she quietly fixed it without making him feel stupid. After service, I pulled Chef Daniel aside. "How's Margaret working out?" He grinned. "Honestly, she's one of the most reliable people I've got. Shows up, does the work, helps the younger kids without being condescending. I'd clone her if I could." I nodded. "Good. Let her know she's off probation. Full benefits start next week." That night, before leaving, Mrs. Clark knocked on my office door. I looked up from my laptop. "Come in." She stepped inside hesitantly. "Chef Daniel told me about the benefits. I just wanted to say thank you." "You earned it. Your work has been solid." She stood there awkwardly for a moment. "Lena, I know I can never take back the things I said to you, the way I treated you. I was bitter and cruel and completely wrong. You were never useless. You were ambitious and hardworking, and I was too proud to see it." I leaned back in my chair. "Mrs. Clark, I appreciate the apology. But I want you to understand something. I didn't hire you to torture you, and I didn't hire you to prove a point. I hired you because you were qualified, and I needed staff. What you said to me 5 years ago hurt, but it also motivated me. Sometimes the people who doubt us end up pushing us further than the people who believe in us." She wiped her eyes. "Eric asks about you sometimes. He's not with that woman anymore. Things didn't work out. He's doing okay, but he regrets how things ended. I hope he's happy. I really do. Are you? Happy, I mean?" I looked around my office. At the life I'd built from nothing but spite and determination, and a refusal to accept someone else's definition of my worth. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." She nodded and left quietly. 3 months later, a magazine reached out wanting to do a feature on the Golden Spoon. Women-owned businesses changing the industry or something like that. They wanted photos, interviews, behind-the-scenes footage of the kitchen. The day of the shoot, I wore my favorite blazer. Black, perfectly tailored, the kind of thing that makes you feel like you can conquer anything. The photographer set up in the dining room during off hours. They wanted shots of me cooking, plating dishes, interacting with staff. During one setup, they wanted kitchen background shots, the staff going about prep work, natural, candid moments. Mrs. Clark was there in her uniform, dicing onions with perfect precision. The photographer captured her in the background of several shots. Just another member of my team. When the magazine came out 6 weeks later, the headline read, "From Lunchboxes to Empire, How Lena Martinez Built the Golden Spoon." There was a 2-page spread, photos of the restaurant, an interview where I talked about starting with $10 and a dream. And there, in one of the kitchen shots, you could see her. Mrs. Clark, wearing an apron, working in my kitchen. I didn't frame that photo to be cruel. I framed it because it represented something bigger. It represented the fact that life has a funny way of humbling the people who think they're above being humbled. That success doesn't require cruelty, just consistency. That the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so undeniable that the people who doubted you have no choice but to respect it. The restaurant continued to thrive. We won awards, got written up in national food publications. I started getting offers to franchise, to sell, to expand internationally. I considered all of it carefully. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a legacy. Mrs. Clark worked for me for 2 more years before she retired for real. On her last day, she asked if we could talk privately. We sat in my office, the same space where I'd interviewed her years before. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "I know I have no right to be, but I am. What you've built here is extraordinary. Thank you. I tell people about you now, about how wrong I was, about how you gave me a job when you had every reason not to. Some people think I'm crazy for working for my former daughter-in-law, but this was the best thing that could have happened to me. It taught me humility and respect. I'm glad you found what you needed here." She smiled sadly. "You know what the hardest part was? Watching you lead, watching everyone respect you, watching you build this empire while staying kind. It forced me to realize that I'd spent my whole life confusing cruelty with strength. You taught me the difference." After she left, I sat alone in my office for a while. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the city. I thought about that girl who'd cried in the bathroom, who'd made lunchboxes in a tiny apartment kitchen, who'd been called useless by someone who was supposed to be family. I wanted to tell her that it gets better, that the pain becomes fuel, that the people who underestimate you are often just afraid you'll prove them wrong. And when you do, you don't have to gloat, you don't have to shout, you just keep building, keep growing, keep succeeding so loudly that their doubt becomes background noise. That evening, I hosted a staff dinner at the flagship location. 40 employees, all sitting together, sharing the food we'd created. I looked around at the faces, people from different backgrounds, Different struggles, different stories. All of them given a chance. All of them thriving. I stood up with my glass. I want to say something. 5 years ago, I was told I'd never amount to anything. That cooking was a hobby, not a career. That I was useless. Today, we serve over 3,000 meals a week across 7 locations. We employ over 100 people. We've won awards I didn't even know existed. And none of that happened because I wanted revenge. It happened because I wanted to prove something to myself. That I was worth more than anyone's opinion of me. The staff applauded. Some wiped their eyes. I sat back down and we ate together, and for the first time in 5 years, I realized I'd stopped thinking about Mrs. Clark's words. They didn't hurt anymore. They didn't motivate me anymore. They were just something that happened once to a different version of me. Late that night, after everyone left, I walked through the empty restaurant, turned off the lights one by one, locked the doors. My name was etched in gold on the glass. Lena Martinez, owner and executive chef. I stood outside for a moment, looking at my reflection in the window. The woman who'd been called useless was now the woman signing paychecks. The girl who'd cried over a dry chicken was now being interviewed by magazines. The wife who'd been left for someone better had built something no one could take away. And the mother-in-law who'd mocked her dreams? She'd spent 2 years wearing an apron in her kitchen. Not because I forced her to, but because life has a sense of humor. And sometimes the best revenge is just living well enough that your success becomes impossible to ignore. I smiled at my reflection, then walked to my car. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new goals, new opportunities. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel it fully. The victory, the peace, the knowledge that I'd turned humiliation into power. Some people say success is the best revenge. I disagree. Peace is, and I finally had both.